Hey guys, Ryan here. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the best Cold War and Modern Warfare sniper supports. The reason I'm not going to be talking about Vanguard sniper supports in this video is because I touched on that topic a week ago, so if you're interested in that, check that video out. I'm closing in on 800 subscribers, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped make that possible, and I can't tell you how appreciative I am of all of the support. But with all of that said, let's get into it. So at number one, the first gun we're going to talk about is going to be the Lapa. If you are a more aggressive player, if you are someone who plays Rebirth, then I would lean more towards the Lapa. Of all the sniper supports I'm going to talk about in this video, the Lapa is going to be the best close range gun on this entire list. Now, the MP7 and CX9 have comparable time to kills up close as the Lapa, but just with the overall feel, ADS, sprint to fire, mobility, recoil, everything, when you're talking about feel, the Lapa is going to feel the best up close. That's why I'd recommend it for people who kind of specialize in close range engagements. If you're a more aggressive player, as I said before, or if you're someone who plays on Rebirth, then this is the sniper support I would kind of go for. So while I do have this gun number one on this list, that doesn't mean it's actually the best sniper support I'm going to talk about in this video, and that's something to keep in mind. All of the sniper supports I'm going to talk about in this video are going to have their each own individual strengths, and you're going to have to find the right one that fits your playstyle and the way you play. So anyways guys, that's going to lead me into talking about number two, the CX9. So while the CX9 does technically kill faster than the Lapa that I talked about in this last section, it just doesn't feel that good up close. The mobility is really not on par with a lot of the meta SMGs, and it's really not as mobile as something like the Lapa, but what it does have is really good damage up close and really good damage in the mid-range and outstanding hip fire. If you are a more conservative player, if you're a more laid back player and mobility really isn't a key factor in your guns, then this is one of the sniper supports I'd really recommend using. But one of the main things I talked about earlier was the hip fire accuracy on this thing. Now for a lot of people, they don't think it's that important, but when I talk about the MP7 later on, it's going to be another key point. Hipfire accuracy is just one of those small hidden benefits to a lot of Modern Warfare guns that really helps set them apart. I think a lot of people would end up liking the CX9 if they gave it a try. It has good damage up close, it has good damage in the mid-range, it has pretty low recoil overall, and it has amazing hipfire accuracy. The only real downside is going to be the mobility, but as long as you know that and you play around it and just have good positioning, it's really not going to matter. I really enjoyed this gun, and I think a lot of people would too if they just gave it a try. And that's going to lead me to talking about the third gun on this list, the Cold War AK. So one quick thing about this build is if you like the iron sights, you can take off the red dot sight and put something like the serpent wrap or a Tiger Team spotlight on it. Similar though to the CX9, I would heavily recommend this for more conservative players. It still is very good for aggressive players, as well as so is the CX9, but for more conservative players, it's super good and outright just one of the best guns in the game. Of all the sniper supports I'm going to talk about on this list, this is by far the best mid-range sniper support, and that's not something that should be scoffed at. The reason I talk about the mid-range so much with sniper supports is because that is the hardest part about picking the right sniper support. You need to find a gun that works well up close and then works well in the mid-range, because a sniper oftentimes is going to struggle in those close to mid-range engagements, and that's where you need something like a good sniper support. You can't just pick the fastest killing SMG, because oftentimes those fastest killing SMGs, the ones that melt up close, they aren't good in the mid-range. And that's where things like the Cold War AK and the CX9, the Lapa, the MP7, that's where they come in, because these guns, they function well up close, but they also have pretty good mid-range damage. I would really recommend the Cold War AK for almost any player looking for a new sniper support. Of course, if you want something a little more aggressive, then I would go more towards the MP7 or the Lapa, but this is still a great gun, and I'd heavily recommend it for almost anyone. That's going to lead me to my fourth gun, the MP7. So if you remember my last video where I talked about the Modern Warfare guns, I kind of briefly mentioned the CX9 and the MP7 as sniper supports, but I really didn't feel like I gave those guns justice talking about them, and I didn't even give a build for the CX9, so I felt pretty bad because I really feel like the CX9 and MP7 are just kind of They're interchangeable based on your playstyle. It kind of goes back to that whole aggressive versus conservative thing. I'd say the MP7 is a little bit more aggressive and better for people who like to get in people's faces and win gunfights up close. Because one of the major drawbacks about the MP7 is right at about 15 or so meters, this gun has a huge drop off in damage, and that's going to make it kind of hard to kill people beyond 15 meters. This doesn't mean necessarily bad sniper support, it just means you need to be aware of that, and you need to use it very similarly to the Lapa, where you need to prioritize gunfights between 0 and 20 meters. It's not that you can't win gunfights between 15 and 20 meters and 15 and 25 meters and all that. It's just that between 0 and 10 meters, you're going to come out on top more often than not because of the way this gun works. It has great strafing speed, whether you're aimed down sight or whether you're hip firing, and that is something that is super important. That in fight and in game mobility is what really separates the MP7 from pretty much every other gun on this list. The Lapa is the second most mobile gun, but there's something about the hip fire mobility that this gun offers that is insane. I love this gun, I love using it, and I would heavily recommend for almost anyone to use it. So moving on from there, we're going to go into the honorable mentions territory here. So at number 1, we're going to have the PPSH from Cold War. Number 2, the Bullfrog. Number 3, the XM4. And then finally the MAC-10 and the Vargo. So the Vargo is actually going to be the first gun I'm going to talk about, even though I had it last on this list. The Vargo is a brand new assault rifle they just added a week or two ago, and while I haven't given the gun a tryout myself, when I was looking at builds and the stats and I was watching bigger streamers use this gun, I do really think it has a lot of potential as a really good sniper support. I think within the next couple weeks, I'm going to be able to get a really good idea on how good it is exactly, but I do think it may compete with the XM4 and Colder AK as being kind of the top assault rifle sniper support. We're going to have to see, I'm going to have to give it a try, but do keep your eyes out on that. As for every other gun I had on the honorable mentions list and guns that aren't even, I didn't even talk about in this video, they're probably viable, guys. Almost every gun I talked about, almost every gun you can probably think of as a sniper support, it's probably viable. Now, there may be slightly better options, but for the first time in a long time, there's really no absolute dominant meta guns right now. Of course, there's a couple that stand out like the Well gun, the Bren, the Automaton, but for the most part, as I said before, the meta is wide open. If you like a gun, if you enjoy using it, feel free to use it in almost every scenario. Once again, I've been kind of sick the past week or so, and it's kind of affected the way I record these videos because I just can't record as much as I would like without coughing and all of that. So if you notice me breathing at some points, I'm sorry for that. I just really kind of am struggling right now to breathe because my nose is all stuffed up, so I hope you guys understand that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Not only am I getting close to 800 subscribers, I'm getting really close to 100,000 total views, and that's something that's absolutely crazy to me. I just want to say thank you for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been Ryan. Peace.